Millions of people travel to visit Japan for the first time every year, and before every trip, I notice people tend to ask the same questions. Which city should I visit? When should I go? How do trains work? Do I have to speak Japanese? What should I eat? And what should I know before I arrive? If you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now, don't worry. Before my first trip to Japan, I had all of those questions as well. Japan can feel exciting, but it can also feel intimidating. The language is different, the culture is different. Even something as simple as taking a train can feel confusing when you have never done it before. But after visiting Japan many times, traveling across different regions, and even spending 3 months living there, I've realized something. Japan is actually much easier to navigate than many of us expect. So in this video, I'm going to share the guide that I wish somebody had given to me before my very first trip to Japan. We will talk about where to go, when to visit Japan, transportation, food, useful apps, cultural etiquette, and a few things that I feel that every first time visitor should know. Most importantly, I will share some of the lessons that I have learned from traveling around Japan in the past few years. So, if you are planning your very first Japan trip, let's get started. One of the biggest mistakes that first time visitors make is trying to see too much. Japan looks relatively small on the map, but once you are actually there, you quickly realize how much there is to explore. If this is your first trip, my advice is simple. Don't try to see all of Japan at once. Pick one or two regions and enjoy them properly. Let's start with Tokyo and the Kanto region. If somebody asks me where they should go for their very first Japan trip, Tokyo is most likely going to be my answer. It's convenient, it's well connected, there are international flights everywhere, and there is an incredible variety of things to do. Modern cityscapes, shopping, food, anime culture, museums, day trips, and even more. You could spend an entire week in Tokyo and still not run out of things to see. If you're looking for something more traditional, then Kansai is another fantastic choice. This includes cities like Osaka, Kyoto, and Nara. Kyoto gives you temples, shrines, gardens, and history. Osaka gives you food, nightlife, and a slightly more relaxed atmosphere. Nara gives you famous deer and beautiful historical sites. For many people, Tokyo and Kansai together form the classic first Japan trip. However, if you enjoy nature, cooler weather, and incredible seafood, Hokkaido is wonderful as well. It feels very different from Tokyo. The pace is slower, the landscapes are bigger, and winter there is famous worldwide. Kyushu is another region that I personally enjoy a lot. It has amazing hot springs, delicious food, and a more relaxed atmosphere. Places like Fukuoka, Kumamoto, and Kagoshima often receive fewer international tourists than Tokyo or Kyoto, but they are fantastic destinations. Then there's Tohoku region as well. If you have already been to Japan before, Tohoku might become one of your favorite regions. Beautiful scenery, fewer crowds, rich local culture. Cities like Sendai, Morioka, and Aomori have a charm that's quite different from Tokyo. But if this is your first trip to Japan, keep things simple. Tokyo only, or Tokyo plus Kansai. Japan already feels different enough. You don't have to make your first trip unnecessarily complicated. The next question people normally ask is, when should I visit Japan? And honestly, every season has something special to offer. Spring is probably the most famous. This is the cherry blossom season. The weather is generally pleasant, and many parks become incredibly beautiful. The downside is that it's also one of the busiest periods of the year. Hotels can be more expensive, and popular tourist attractions can become very crowded. Summer is the festival season. You will find fireworks, matsuri, outdoor events, and long daylight hours. But summer in Japan can also be extremely hot and humid. If you are not accustomed to that kind of weather, it can be surprisingly exhausting. Autumn is probably my personal favorite season. The weather is comfortable, the autumn leaves are beautiful, and in my experience, it offers a nice balance between scenery and comfort. Winter is also fantastic, especially if you enjoy snow. Places like Hokkaido become winter wonderlands. You'll find skiing, snow festivals, and some truly stunning landscapes. One thing to remember is that there isn't really a bad time to visit Japan. Every season offers a different experience. What matters more is matching the season to the kind of trip that you want. Personally, if somebody asked me to recommend just one season for a first trip, I would choose autumn. Comfortable weather, beautiful scenery, and generally fewer crowds than the cherry blossom season. But honestly, whenever you choose to go, you are probably going to have an amazing time. One other question that I get asked all the time is, where should I stay in Japan? And honestly, Japan has accommodation options for almost every budget and travel style. If this is your first trip, I generally recommend staying in the business hotel. Chains like 88 Hotel, Tohoku Inn, Dormy Inn, and many others can be found throughout the country. They are usually clean, safe, reliable, and conveniently located near train stations. One thing that surprises many visitors is that Japanese hotel rooms can be smaller than expected. But after staying in quite a few of them over the years, I realized something. They are often designed very efficiently. You may not have a huge room, but you normally have everything that you need. A comfortable bed, a private bathroom, air conditioning, Wi-Fi, and often a surprisingly convenient location. If you are traveling with family or a larger group, Airbnb can also be a good option. It often gives you more space, access to a kitchen, and the opportunity to stay in residential neighborhoods. It can also be a good choice for longer stays. During my 3 month stay in Japan, I realized how useful having access to things like a washing machine and a kitchen can be. Capsule hotels are also a uniquely Japanese experience. If you have never seen one before, they basically provide a compact sleeping pod rather than a traditional hotel room. They are usually clean, safe, and comfortable. Personally, I think that they're worth trying at least once for the experience, but I probably wouldn't choose one for a week-long holiday in Japan. One more option worth considering is a ryokan. Ryokan are traditional Japanese inns where you might sit on futons, wear yukata, and enjoy Japanese-style hospitality. Some ryokan also include dinner, breakfast, and access to hot springs. They can be more expensive, but they also often become one of the most memorable parts of a trip. More important than the hotel itself, however, is the location. This is most likely the single biggest accommodation tip that I can give. Stay somewhere close to a train station. The future you will thank you. In Tokyo, areas like Ueno, Akihabara, Shinagawa, Tokyo Station, and Shinjuku are normally good choices, not because they are the only good areas, but because they are extremely well connected and make exploring the city a lot easier. Personally, I will choose a slightly smaller room near a station over a bigger room far away almost every time, especially since you'll be exploring Japan most of the day rather than being in the hotel room. Before my first trip to Japan, there was one thing that scared me more than anything else: the train system. I remember looking at a train map and thinking, there's absolutely no way I'm going to understand this. There were colored lines everywhere, different train companies, different station names, different symbols. It looked complicated, but after using Japanese trains for years, I realized that the system is actually much easier than it first appears to be. The easiest way to think about it is like this: Metro, JR, Shinkansen. Just three categories in general. Let's begin with metro systems. In cities like Tokyo and Osaka, you will find subway networks such as Tokyo Metro and Toei Subway. These are generally used for traveling within the city itself. If you are going between places like Shinjuku, Shibuya, Ginza, Asakusa, or Ueno, chances are you'll be using the metro at some point in time. Next, we have JR, which stands for Japan Railways. This includes famous lines such as the Yamanote line in Tokyo. Think of JR as a broader network that connects different parts of cities and regions. If you are staying in Tokyo, you will find yourself using the Yamanote line quite frequently. It's a big loop that connects many of the city's major districts. Then we have the Shinkansen, Japan's famous bullet train network. The Shinkansen is what you will use when traveling between major cities, such as Tokyo to Osaka, Tokyo to Sendai, Tokyo to Fukuoka, and many other routes. It's fast, comfortable, and reliable. And honestly, riding the Shinkansen is an experience in itself. There's actually one more category that you will encounter occasionally: private railway companies. This includes lines operated by companies such as Keisei, Odakyu, KQ, Seibu, and others. In Tokyo, you also find lines like the Yuri Kamome, which runs through the Odaiba area. The good news is nowadays, you don't have to remember any of this in particular. Google Maps does the work for you. If there's one app that I recommend downloading before your trip, it's Google Maps. It will tell you which train to take, which platform to go to, how long the journey will take, and even which carriage is best for transfers. One more thing that I strongly recommend getting is an IC card. Cards like Suica and Pasmo make traveling very convenient. Instead of buying tickets individually every time, you simply tap in and tap out. You can also often use them for convenience stores and vending machines as well. One thing that surprises many visitors is how punctual Japanese trains are. If a train is scheduled to arrive at 10:03, it often arrives exactly at 10:03. This is something that I still appreciate every time I visit Japan. And yes, despite everything that I have said, you most likely will still get lost at least once, which I did. You may take the wrong exit, you may board the wrong train, you may walk 10 minutes in the wrong direction, but don't worry, it happens to everybody. Some of my most favorite travel stories started with a small mistake, and before long, you realize that Japan's transport system is not something to be scared about. It's actually one of the things that makes traveling around the country so enjoyable. One thing that I hear quite often from first-time visitors is, I worry about accidentally breaking a rule in Japan. And honestly, I think that people worry more than they have to. Most Japanese etiquette can be summarized with one simple idea: being considerate of the people around you. That's really the foundation behind most of the customs that you will encounter. Now, let me share a few things that are useful to know. First, you realize that people rarely eat while walking. It's not illegal, and nobody is going to stop you. However, people prefer to finish their food near the shop before continuing on their way. It's partly about avoiding litter, and partly about consideration for others. One more thing that you will quickly notice is that there aren't many public dustbins. This surprises almost every first-time visitor. Japan is one of the cleanest countries that I visited to date. Yet, Public rubbish bins can be difficult to find. As a result, people simply carry their trash until they find a place to dispose of it. Speaking of public spaces, trains are generally very quiet. People often have their phones on silent mode. Conversations tend to be quieter. Most people avoid speaking on the phone altogether while on public transport. You don't have to sit in complete silence. Just be mindful of the people around you. You also realize that people tend to queue very neatly, whether it's for trains, escalators, restaurants, or elevators. People generally wait for their turn. On escalators, you often see people standing on one side and leaving the other side empty. Just keep in mind that this can vary depending on the city. In Tokyo, people typically stand on the left, but in Osaka, people often stand on the right. One more common question is about tipping. In many countries, there's an expectation to tip, but in Japan, it isn't the case. In fact, tipping can cause confusion at times. Good service is already considered part of the experience. One thing I always tell visitors is this: most Japanese etiquette is not about following a long list of rules. It's about being aware of people around you. If you are respectful, observant, and willing to learn, you are already doing better than you think. And honestly, if you make a small mistake, don't panic. Most people understand that visitors are also learning. One of the biggest questions people ask before visiting Japan is this: do I have to speak Japanese? The short answer is no. You don't have to be fluent in Japanese to enjoy Japan. In fact, many visitors travel around Japan successfully without speaking much Japanese at all. However, there are a few tools and phrases that can make your trip significantly easier. Let's begin with the tools. Before you travel to Japan, download Google Translate and Google Lens. Google Translate helps you to communicate when necessary, and Google Lens is one of the most useful travel tools available today. You can point your camera at menus, signs, train station notices, product labels, restaurant posters, and instantly get a translation. When I first began traveling in Japan, technology wasn't nearly this good. Nowadays, many cases that would have been stressful are solved in a few seconds. That being said, I still recommend learning a few simple Japanese phrases, not because you need them, but because they make interaction smoother and often more enjoyable. The first phrase is "Arigato gozaimasu." Thank you very much. You will use it often. The second phrase is "sumimasen." This is also one of the most useful words in Japanese. It can mean "excuse me," "sorry," or simply "could I get your attention?" One more useful phrase is this "onegai shimasu," which is often used when making requests. And finally, "daijoubu desu," which can mean "I'm okay," "I'm fine," or "no thank you," depending on situation. The good news is that most Japanese don't expect tourists to be fluent in Japanese, but making even a small effort often goes a long way. Sometimes, a simple "arigato gozaimasu" can completely change the atmosphere of an interaction. This is why I always encourage others to learn a few phrases before going. One thing I love about Japan is that food is everywhere. Whether you are in Tokyo, Osaka, Sendai, or Sapporo, you'll find incredible meals at almost every price point. You don't have to eat at a Michelin star restaurant to eat well in Japan. Some of my best meals so far have come from random restaurants that I discovered while walking around. If this is your first trip, here are a few foods that I think you should try. First, ramen. This is one of Japan's most famous dishes. Ramen actually varies significantly across different regions. For example, Hakata ramen in Fukuoka is famous for its rich tonkotsu broth, whereas Sapporo is known for miso ramen, and there are many local variations throughout the country. Next is sushi. Even if you have already eaten sushi before, the experience in Japan can be quite different. Especially if you are going to coastal regions with exceptionally fresh seafood. Then we have tonkatsu, breaded and deep fried pork cutlet, crispy on the outside but juicy on the inside. One of my personal favorites. I also recommend curry rice. Japanese curry is different from other kinds of curry. It's thicker, slightly sweeter, and very comforting. Soba and udon are also worth trying. Both are noodle dishes, but with very different textures and styles. And if you are traveling around Japan, something that I love is that every region has its own specialties. In Sendai, you will find gyutan or beef tongue. In Nagoya, miso katsu is very popular. In Fukuoka, you will find Hakata ramen. And in Hokkaido, seafood is a major highlight. Being able to explore regional food is honestly one of the most enjoyable parts of traveling around Japan. Also, don't overlook chain restaurants. Some tourists assume that they should only eat at famous restaurants, but chain restaurants can actually be a good introduction to Japanese food. Places like Matsuya, Yoshinoya, and Sukiya offer affordable gyudon and set meals. Koko Ichibanya is famous for Japanese curry. Saizeriya is a popular family restaurant with affordable prices. These places are convenient, easy to use, and often delicious. One final piece of advice: don't spend your entire trip chasing viral restaurants from social media. Set aside time for spontaneous discoveries. That's often where the magic happens. Now, I'm going to share a few apps that I personally find to be incredibly useful when traveling in Japan. If you are only going to install a handful of apps before your trip, I recommend these apps. First, Google Maps. Honestly, this is probably the single most important app for you. Navigation, train routes, walking directions, restaurant locations, opening hours, and so on and so forth. Google Maps handles a huge portion of the traveling experience. Time is also an excellent option, especially if you want something specifically designed for Japanese transport. Travelers find it especially useful for train routes, transfers, and railway information. Personally, I still prefer to use Google Maps, but Navitime is a great supplement if you are traveling around Japan. As mentioned earlier, Google Translate and Google Lens are also very useful. Being able to translate menus, signs, and product labels instantly can save a lot of time and stress. On top of this, Tabelog is also a very useful app. Think of it as Japan's restaurant review platform. If you are finding highly rated restaurants nearby, Tabelog can be very useful. One thing that you will learn quickly is that Japanese people often trust Tabelog reviews more so than Google reviews. For taxis, I also recommend downloading Go Taxi. It's one of the most commonly used taxi apps in Japan and can be very convenient when trains are not practical. For weather, Yahoo Weather Japan is excellent. Weather conditions can change quickly, especially during the typhoon season. Having a good and reliable weather app is always helpful. For travelers from Singapore, I also recommend looking into cards such as Utrip. Exchange rates are generally competitive, and it makes it much easier to make overseas payments. Nowadays, things have been made significantly easier with technology. Many of the previous challenges that travelers faced years ago can now be solved with a few taps on your phone. So, before you go for your Japan trip, spend 10 minutes downloading some of these most useful apps. Future you will be grateful. Before we end, I wish to share a few things that first-time visitors often overlook. Most of these are not major issues, but knowing them in advance can make your trip smoother and more enjoyable. First, Japan is located in an earthquake-prone region. If you are going to Japan, there's a good chance that you will experience a small earthquake at some point in time. Most are minor and pass within a few seconds, but if it happens, don't panic. You should follow instructions from local authorities and hotel staff. Japan has some of the world's most advanced earthquake preparedness systems. One more thing worth noting is the typhoon season. Typhoons are most common during the late summer and early autumn months. They don't affect every trip, but it's worth checking weather forecasts regularly if you are traveling during that period. Now, speaking of timing, there are two periods that I generally encourage first-time travelers to be aware of. The first is Golden Week, which normally falls around late April to early May. Most Japanese people travel during this period, which means that trains, hotels, and tourist attractions are going to be extremely crowded. The next period is the New Year holiday. Unlike many countries where New Year is mostly a one-day event, Japan treats it as a major family holiday. Some restaurants, shops, and attractions may close for several days. If you are traveling around that period, it's worth checking opening dates in advance. Also, bring comfortable shoes to Japan. This might sound obvious, but trust me, you are going to walk a lot more than you expect. Even on days where you think that you are taking trains everywhere, large stations, shopping districts, and sightseeing areas often involve a lot of walking. I also recommend carrying some cash. Japan has become much more card friendly in recent years, much more so than when I first began visiting Japan. But there are still occasional restaurants, temples, vending machines, and local shops that still prefer cash. Having some cash on hand is always useful. One thing that I often hear is Japan is very safe, and in general, that's true. Japan is one of the safest countries that I visited, but safe doesn't mean risk-free. Use common sense. Keep an eye on your belongings. Be cautious around overly persistent talks, and remember that scams can exist from anywhere in the world. Finally, do not be overly stressed about making mistakes in Japan. You may miss some trains, get lost, make small errors, but every single traveler does. And honestly, this is fine. These often become the stories that you remember later. And finally, the biggest piece of advice that I can give you thus far. When you plan your first trip to Japan, it's very easy to focus entirely on attractions, famous landmarks, popular restaurants, shopping lists, day trips. Nothing is wrong with this. These places are popular for a reason. They are worth seeing. But after traveling around Japan for many years, and after living here for 3 months, there's something that I realized. Some of the best times that I had so far in Japan were not the famous places. They were the simple things. Walking through a quiet neighborhood, passing through a supermarket, sitting in a cafe, taking a train somewhere, watching people go about their everyday lives, looking around in a local shopping street, stopping by a convenience store at night. These are the sort of things that normally don't show up in travel guides, the kind of things that you won't see often on social media. Before my first Japan trip, I thought the goal of travel was to see as much as possible, to optimize every day, to maximize every hour, to check every item of the itinerary. However, over time, I realized that some of the best travel experiences happen when you leave room for spontaneity. When you give yourself time to wander off for a little bit. When you take a different street. When you stop by because something looks interesting. When you give yourself permission to slow down. Japan is an incredible country. The food is wonderful. Transportation is fantastic. The culture is fascinating. But the thing that I appreciate most about Japan is that it taught me to enjoy the simple moments a bit more. And if I could give just one piece of advice before your first trip, it would be this. Don't spend your entire holiday looking through a checklist. Leave room for curiosity. Leave room for unexpected discoveries. Years later, these are going to be the things that you remember the most. Your first Japan trip might not go perfectly well. You might get lost. You might miss trains. You might take the wrong exit. You might board the wrong carriage. We have all been there, done that. But that is part of the adventure. And who knows, your first Japan trip might end up being the start of many more Japan trips in years to come, as it was for me. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing trip to Japan.